What is up, YouTube? Today we are doing a weak point day and also kind of like a shape day. So when I say shape, it's really building the width of my body. And what we're doing right now is we're doing the row, but we're doing it so that it's upright and so that I'm really working on the upper portion of my back. So really the traps, the rhomboids, and the rear delts right now. So the teaching cue that I'm really hitting is I'm emphasizing keeping my elbow up, keeping tall elbows. And what I found is that when my elbow kind of goes down and sinks below a certain point, a lot of the stress and a lot of the contraction starts to move into my lat. So with this, I'm really trying to keep my elbows as tall as possible. So keeping my elbows as tall as possible, and that's really going to help me develop the upper back thickness, just because that is an area where I'm trying to improve. So next, I'm also focusing in on how I pull. So when I say this, I'm thinking about kind of like letting the muscles kind of roll off of my upper back. It's a very weird feeling, but it's one of those things that over time you kind of have to use a little bit less weight to really get that movement and that biomechanic down so it feels a lot better. But I'm kind of letting the muscles of my upper back, like the traps, the rhomboids, the rear delt, all of them kind of round forward. But I'm trying to also keep a flat back. So it's one of those things that you kind of have to play around with it in the gym, and over time, you'll kind of really be able to feel that contraction that I'm talking about. So next, we're moving into the pullover. So with the pullover, the great thing about this is that you can use a rope and you can use a bar. Today we only had the bar, so what I'm doing is I'm really thinking about pushing down. So it's weird because it's called a pullover, but what I found over the years is that when I focus more on pulling and sinking deep into my lats, I get a better contraction. Now with the bar, the downside is that you can't pull as far back with the rope. You can imagine if there was a rope here, I could kind of like bring my hand further back, like past my hip point. With the bar, you don't have that luxury. So what I do instead, and it really is helpful when you're stuck in these scenarios, is I take the bar and I kind of press it down into my thigh. And what I found is that my thigh acts as a counter to the lat muscle, and that helps me get a little bit of a better contraction. I can really squeeze down on it. Also, I don't know if you guys can tell, your boy's kind of starting to get some feathers in the tricep. So the feather, it's always interesting to me how the anatomy of the body and when you can really see the muscle. The feathers is kind of like these like striations in the tricep, and I don't know, it's just interesting to see, like, you know, after 16 years of lifting, like how my body is still developing and still growing, and there are rooms and areas of improvement to always grow. But yeah, the lat pullover is obviously one of my favorite movements to really emphasize the lat. And what I love about this movement too is that it's one of the few movements where you don't necessarily, like, your arm and your bicep isn't going to be involved at all. Like, we can manipulate biomechanics to really make sure that the bicep is a secondary muscle when we're pulling. But at the end of the day, there's only so many movements or so many things you can do where your bicep won't be involved. And the lat pullover, you really get that opportunity to really sink in and work on the lats. Now this, and the way that I'm doing it, is going to definitely help with the thickness. And that's why, you know, the next movement we're going to go into a pull down, which will really help with the width. So I found personally for me that I really like machines when I'm training hypertrophy. If you guys have been following along, you guys know I train a lot more for strength, and aesthetics has always kind of been a second thing. But I found that whenever I do train for aesthetics, I love when the movement pattern is predetermined and I really just have to focus on the contraction. So machines are a great weapon in your arsenal to really, you know, allow yourself the ability to just focus on the contraction. And what I've found for the back in particular, back is one of the few muscle groups where I find that unilateral work really allows me to connect with the muscle and really focus in on the muscle, because the back is, for me, has been always a very difficult muscle to develop. The next thing that I do want to talk about is also the reverse shrug when I row down. I've talked about this a lot, but that reverse shrug, what it really allows me to do, it allows my lats to be the primary driver. It's taking the bicep out of it. So that first rep there it was again, but that allows me to kind of only focus in on my lat muscles. So we keep pulling down. One of the things I'm thinking about too is envisioning that X. I think a huge portion of this, and honestly all of hypertrophy, is really envisioning something, like really believing that, you know, the work that you're doing is going to pay off and that you are creating that image in your mind as you're working. So a huge piece of this also is like the visualization. And the thing that I'm visualizing, I'm being honest, I'm visualizing creating an X. Like I'm really visualizing creating that shape. Now, is it a little bro science-y to say that like vertical movements will build the width? Yeah, but what else do we really have? Like that you kind of have to look at, you know, other people who've done it in the past and realize that success leaves clues and try to emulate what they do. So another thing that I'm also working on here is that if you notice, I really do normally like to control the weight for every set, but sometimes I kind of like to just pump blood in there, and every now and then I'll just have a straight set where I'll go a little bit faster. Next, we're going into the single arm pull down. Here, what I've found works really well for me, and you guys can also try it, is leaning into a side. So a lot of times in lifting, you'll kind of get, people will wave the finger at using body English. But I found that kind of using a little of that momentum and swaying into the side a little bit really does help me connect with the lat, really help me connect with creating those sweeping lats. And what you'll also notice here too is that I really do like to envision like my lat coming up too, right? So I've said it in the past and I'll try to explain it really well right now, but what I'm trying to use is the weight as a counter. So what do I mean by that? Like I'm trying to use the weight to open me up and stretch me out at the top. And it's something that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about really ever, but I found that it does work for me. The visualization and the ability to kind of allow the weight to pull me up and stretch open the lat muscle. One of the things too that you'll notice is that for some of the reps, whenever I do back, I'll wrap my thumb around, and some reps I won't. And I found that when I wrap my thumb around, my forearm's really engaged, and my forearm can also burn out. So sometimes I don't do it. But the reason why I do it is it's a great opportunity to give your forearm some work, because you really do want to work those peripheral muscles when you're developing the shape. So what is that? That's delts. That's the back. That's the legs too, right? Like today's a back day, and we'll talk about this later as I make more videos, but when you're developing that shape for the lower body, it's also about putting your feet in a narrow stance position so that way you can develop more of a quad sweep, and that ultimately develops the full shape for the whole entire body. So doing another set here, I really do like to keep my body as vertical as possible, and then just again rocking into the side. One of the things that I'd say that I definitely do differently than a lot of people is that no two of my sets always look the same. So some sets I'll really focus on going slow and really making sure that I'm milking the lengthening portion of the muscle, or really the negative. In some portions or some sets, I'll really kind of just pump blood in there. In some sets, I'll really focus on squeezing and holding as long as I can to get a good contraction. I'll say it and I'll say it again, you know, bodybuilding at the end of the day, there's not a complete like science to this. It's kind of art and intuition. And sometimes you might do a set and you might finish it and you might be like, that wasn't done right. And you might have to do it again, right? It's all about feeling and connecting and making sure that, you know, it's working for you and that the right muscles are working, right? That's something that doesn't get emphasized. Excuse me, I had to cough there. That's something that doesn't get emphasized. Make sure that the right muscles get used. Next, we're going into the reverse pec deck. First thing I do every time I do this exercise, I punch. I punch deep into the machine. What you'll notice is that I don't go all the way back. Sometimes I do, but when you go further back, obviously you're going to engage more of the traps and the rhomboids and the upper back. When you go a little bit shorter, you can really hit that rear delt. And what I found is I like to have a slight bend, nothing too crazy. My arms are pretty straight, but I like to have a slight bend. And I find that that's a good contraction for me, and it works really well for me. With the reverse pec deck, and honestly, any shoulder movement, I've found the best teaching cue is to just pretend that there's a string attached to your elbow and that someone's pulling on that string. Guys, really quickly, sorry to cut into the audio, but could you please make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and we will keep growing. Thanks. Yep, and we just pull back and we squeeze as tight as we can. And I'm not going all the way back and engaging the traps around, boys. I'm stopping just shy. And it's not, there's nothing wrong with going all the way back and squeezing. In some sets I will go all the way back and squeeze. But right now I'm really just focusing in on those rear delts. Next we're going into the assisted pull-up. Now this is one of my favorite machines. Also really quickly though, my calves have been getting a lot bigger. And I know this is random. I know we're supposed to be talking about pull-ups, but something I've been doing is just 5 sets of 20 reps at the end of each workout with as heavy of a weight as I can use. Really been emphasizing using the Smith machine. So if any of you guys are having a problem developing your calves, that's also a really great thing to use. But the assisted pull-up is one of the best ways to finish, and also a great way to really start the back day if you like having a bit of a pump before you start your back day. But I'll do about 10 reps wide, 10 reps narrow, and then 10 reps in the standard position, and that really hits pretty much every portion of the back and really will help develop that width which we are looking for to develop inside of this workout. So that's one of the biggest pieces too. Finally, I wanted to go over something. This is like something that I wanted to emphasize with the strap. You want to have your strap that close. A lot of people don't know that. Like a lot of people, for me, the longest time I had my strap about this distance, right around here. Like even that is too much space. You want to glue your strap as tight as possible. So I just want to leave you guys with that so you can get the most out of your strap. But if you made it this far in the video, please make sure to subscribe. We'll be making more. Peace out.